Have you ever noticed your citrus trees set tons of fruit, but then they end up kind of small and disappointing? Well, in this video, I'm gonna give you a simple trick that will make a huge difference, and you can do it in minutes. And the best part is that you will end up with bigger, better citrus every single year. In case you haven't guessed yet, we're talking about fruit thinning. And this is something that holds true for most fruit trees, but specifically we're talking about citrus trees here. Now, especially when the trees are younger, or if you're like me and you grow them in pots, so they're kind of restricted in size. If a citrus tree puts out too much fruit, it might not have the energy it needs to ripen them fully or to bring them to their full size and flavor potential. Often what happens is that citrus trees will put out hundreds or even thousands of blooms in tiny fruits, and it'll lose some of those. But if you let the tree keep every single one of its fruits and try to develop them all, then they're going to end up smaller, less juicy, and just less flavorful overall. And then come the next season, the tree's in recovery mode because it spent all of its energy trying to ripen all of these fruits. And so often you'll see this thing that's called biennial bearing. Well, the tree will have a huge crop one summer or one year, and then little to nothing the next year as it recovers and kind of gets its strength back up to start fruiting again. And I noticed this happen with this tree right here. This is a blood orange tree. And if you can see, I'll bring you closer in a second, it has 0 fruit on it. And I think that's because it was too busy fruiting last summer and didn't have the energy it needed to put out fruit. It did bloom, but none of the fruit stayed. And so that's a defense mechanism that the tree has. And that's a good thing because hopefully this means it's going to have a great crop next year. But a way to avoid that biennial bearing, to get a harvest every year, is by strategically thinning out the fruits at a certain size. Another reason we want to thin the fruit on citrus trees is because of what happened to this tree back here. This is my Meyer lemon tree, and I'll show you, it's a little bit lopsided right now because last year it was so laden with amazing fruit that one of the branches broke off. And now the tree's lopsided and it's trying to grow new branches to recover, which means it's still fruiting, but not fruiting as well. So this whole problem could have been avoided if I had properly thinned the fruit off of that area of the tree last year. If you're lucky enough to grow citrus in the ground, or if your trees mature a little bit more, you'll find that they can actually handle growing a lot of fruit. But there's still situations where you might want to do some thinning. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is probably the most important, and it's timing. Because if you thin too early or too late, you might miss that perfect window that's going to help the fruit the most. Here's an example of how the flowers grow all clustered together. And each one of these flowers is going to be pollinated and turned into a tiny lemon. But if we let them all grow into full-size lemons, this branch is definitely not going to make it. After the tree blooms, you'll see lots of tiny baby fruits like this. You might see hundreds at a time on the tree. And at this stage, you don't want to thin yet. For one thing, because you can't tell yet which fruits are going to be the stronger ones, the more viable ones. It's also really easy to damage them on accident if you get in there and try to pull. But the main reason you want to wait is because Mother Nature is going to do the first round of thinning for you. You might have noticed that citrus trees drop tons of these little baby fruits. And that's no cause for panic. It's a good thing because the tree is going to self-thin first and drop most of its fruit and keep on only what it wants to try to develop and grow. So the tree will drop its really tiny fruits usually about a month after it blooms, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and you'll notice a lot of these falling. But then if you wait a few more weeks, the fruits start to size up a little bit. So we get something like this. This is a cluster of young lemons. And, on a mature tree, this might be just fine, but my tree is, not that big. So I want to thin these lemons out because this branch is going to really struggle to support all of this fruit. And there's a couple more further down the branch. So this is the size where you want to start thinking about thinning fruit. They're about the size of a nickel, about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And this is a great time to thin because the fruits are still young enough that the tree will have plenty of energy to continue to grow and develop whatever's left and help them to grow to full size. If you thin, let me see if I can find an example. If you wait until the fruits are bigger, then that's not going to change the size of the remaining fruit. Like, I should have thinned this branch a long time ago, but I missed it. And so pulling one of these early at this point isn't going to make a big difference. So that's why we want to do it when the fruit's a little bit smaller. The actual thinning process is super simple. I'm just going to use my hands, or you can use some clean, sanitized pruners or snippers if that's easier for you. So the first thing you want to look for is anything that is damaged or maybe slightly starting to yellow. Chances are the the tree is probably going to drop that fruit anyway, especially if it's yellowing, because that probably means that it was damaged while it was younger, maybe from cold or something, or that it wasn't pollinated correctly or something like that. But you might as well go ahead and pull those fruits off now. Now that we've done that, we can get to spacing. So you're aiming for, I try to aim for about 6 inches apart, give or take. I mean, I don't go around with a ruler, but that's the general idea. So for example, on this branch that I was showing you a minute ago, I've got one lemon at the very tip of the branch, one about 4 or 5 inches in here, and then this cluster is about 6 inches down, and it's growing off of its own little branch. So this cluster might be able to handle more than one lemon. I might leave 2 on here. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. But I'm gonna pick the biggest and strongest looking fruits that look like they're going to give me the best chance of a really good lemon. So for this cluster, honestly, they all look amazing. To be honest, this is painful. It's so hard to get rid of perfectly viable fruit, but I know it's going to pay off, and I'll show you at the end what I mean. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm just going to give it a twist, and it pops right off. Okay, I've kept 2 on here for now. So I'm gonna go a few other places and thin out some clusters and crowded areas. After the thinning step, there's really nothing else you need to do except to make sure that the fruits that are left actually stay on the tree throughout the whole season and get to ripening at the end of the year. So just very quick tips about that. One of the things that's going to keep fruit from falling when it's more mature is consistent moisture. Because often what you'll see happen is that the reason that citrus fruits fall off the tree when they get bigger is that they get stressed by heat or especially drought. So as the weather gets hotter into the spring and summer, you're going to want to make sure you're doing really consistent moisture, keeping the soil damp, not too much, obviously, but you don't want the soil to dry out too much between waterings, because that is going to cause the fruit to fall. And after doing all of this work of thinning the baby fruit, you don't want to lose fruit once it starts getting bigger. This is also just your friendly reminder to make sure that you're fertilizing throughout this season. I like to do lighter, more frequent fertilizings. And if you want more details about that, I'm going to refer to you to a really detailed video I did about how I fertilize all of my potted citrus trees. And finally, you want to make sure that when we get to this time of year, it's now November, and the citrus is actually beginning to ripen, you want to make sure that you're picking the fruit as it ripens, because all of the fruit, you can see these trees are still flowering and putting out little new fruits as they have fruit that's just about ready to be picked. So a lot of citrus trees flower and fruit throughout the year, especially if you live in a milder climate. And so you want to make sure you're picking the fruit off the tree as it ripens, because if the fruit hangs too long on the tree, then it kind of confuses it and keeps the tree from fruiting as prolifically the next year, if that makes sense. So pick as you go, pick as they ripen, rather than waiting until everything is ripe and letting the fruit hang on the tree for a really long time, because that's going to hurt next year's harvest. So that is fruit thinning. I hope I've convinced you to give it a go on your citrus trees in particular. It's not very hard. The tree does most of the work for you. But if your goal is the most juicy, flavorful, biggest fruit possible, I mean, that's the advantage to growing yourself, right? Because you can grow the kind of fruit that you want. If that's your goal, then this one extra step can make a huge difference. Even though it's really painful to get rid of fruit, it's worth it in the end, I promise you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.